Hello everyone, it is Sunday night and we are here live at Bat City Comic Professionals, which means it must be time to wind down your weekend. As always, I am your host, Shannon, aka Small Press Shann, here to tell you about all of this week's indie and small press comics. And as always, I can't wait to get super excited about all the comics with you because there are so many great comics coming out right now. So many beautiful stories, so much great art. We're going to talk about all of it and we're going to geek out and be stoked because that's what it's all about. We are going to do that while we drink this week's wine, which I don't actually even know what it's called. What is it called? It's Sterling. Oh, it's on the back too. Hey, we're going to drink Sterling, which is Vintner's collection. It's a California Cab Sav. It's only from 2022. So we're going to see. I don't know anything about this. Like, does it say? Okay. It's blackberry cherries and blackcurrant aromas with vanilla and spice. So it sounds like it's going to be our typical Cab Sav. And we're going to see, it says it's got a nice balance. So we'll see if it's sweet, if it's, tanniny. Let's see. It's one of those that you can definitely smell the aroma. Like they were saying, like when you list, you can smell it. I always wonder if you can. And this one I could smell it like as soon as I picked it up. I like that it's not sweet, but it's got a little bit of like the smoothness of one of the fruits. I would say maybe it's the blackberry, maybe it's that's the smooth texture. You're saying yes, you agree?
It has a fruity texture.
It does. It has the fruity texture, but then it does almost taste like when you put vanilla extract in something, but not like you actually follow the directions and you only put like the one drop of vanilla extract. Like that has that level of vanilla to it. I don't ever follow that rule. If you have a baking recipe and you give it to me, please warn me in advance if it really needs only one drop of vanilla extract, because if you say one, I might use one of those tiny bottles because I love that taste.
It's very full-bodied too. Full tannins.
It is. There's a lot of flavor in general to this. Like you can kind of pick up like as you swallow the taste, like you get each of the pieces. Like I feel like I can taste the blackberry. I feel like I can taste the way cherry tastes in wine. Like it doesn't taste like a cherry candy or, anything like that, but it actually tastes kind of like the way cherry blends into wine. And like I said, you get a little bit of that vanilla. It's not as spicy as I would have thought, given that they brought up that it has like the strong aroma and that it has the spices. So it's not as spicy as I would have thought it would be, but it's spicy enough that this would make a good like Christmas time wine. Like it has that nice wintry flavor, which is funny because I really thought that it was just like, I thought it said winter collection at first, and the label is silver, so I was like, oh, it's going to be like a nice little wintry wine, and that was totally not what it is, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. So but it tastes really good. This is another one that I could see you pairing with like a Christmas dinner, or even Christmas cookies. Like I feel like ginger cookies or the cookies that you decorate like would taste really good as a snack with this. Something that would bring out that vanilla flavor to it would probably be a really good addition to it. We're going to be drinking this tonight. No matter what, if you're drinking water, if you're drinking a wine, if whatever you're drinking, let us know, because we definitely want to know what you're drinking tonight as well.
I would drink it with cheese.
Ooh, yeah, I mean, I would drink all wines with cheese. I just saw Christy's post that she says that she makes homemade vanilla extract. We are going to be talking for sure, because I need to try that. I'm going to share this really fast so that other people can join us and talk about comics with us. If you're watching live, if you're watching on YouTube, obviously you can't talk directly with me, but you can leave me comments, and I would love to hear it. And speaking of Christy, thank you so much to Christy and Realize Bradenton for having us out last night for Winter Wonderland in downtown Bradenton. I love our city. Our city has this magical experience like around every corner. Like there's so much all the time that just reminds you that that this is the friendly city, that it's this beautiful, amazing place where everybody comes together. I saw so many people like as I was walking around at the end of the thing. We had already cleaned up and other people were still there, and as I'm walking through, I'm like stopping at every booth and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know you, I love your stuff, it's amazing, I hope you had an amazing day. Everybody's like, oh, happy holidays. You know, it snowed, thanks to the like Gypsy Spirits, I believe it was, that was providing all the snow. It was such a great amazing thing to see snow in the middle of downtown Bradenton, and there was like the North Pole that was right there, and so it was snowing all through the North Pole. It was amazing. Santa showed up. Santa Marty was there, which I did not get to see Santa Marty, so I'm really sad about that, because if you're a Bradenton Marauders fan, you know Marty is the mascot and I love him, so I was a little sad that I missed him, but I saw pictures of him in his Santa outfit and it was super cool. But it was such a fun time. We got to hang out with a lot of people. We colored some pictures. We made some comics. We had a lot of people play on our big pianos. So Toys R Us, I know you're coming back. Remember to bring back your FAO Shorts product line too, because everybody loves that big piano. And not that you're watching Toys R Us, but if you know, Jeffrey, if you're free and you're watching, bring that back. And then we also had our amazing teen volunteer and one of our art instructors, Aster, out there, who was doing free sketches for kids, had sketch cards out there and was doing by request sketch cards for kiddos, and it was the cutest thing. The very first kid that came up, Aster had drawn some in advance, and there was one of Pikachu on the table, and this kid was like, this is the coolest Pikachu ever, and Aster's like, it's free, you can have it, and the kid was like, oh my gosh, and like grabbed it and started jumping up and down and was like, Mom, Dad, I got a Pikachu, and I was like, this is what I would be like if Pokemon were real and I actually collected them in real life. I would probably have that level of enthusiasm like every time. So it was absolutely wonderful to be a part of that. Friday, we had our annual subscriber Christmas party. Thank you so much to all of our subscribers who came out. We have an ungodly amount of food left because so many people brought so many incredible dishes, and a special shout out in that capacity to Vernona Gourmet, the wonderful Hungarian restaurant just on the block that provided Hungarian meatballs for everybody to try. It was definitely the belle of the ball, so to speak. Everybody was freaking out at how good they are. So thank you so much to Nicoletta and her team for providing those, and thank you to Sherry at Loving Hands for providing Christmas decorations so the store would actually look holiday excited and ready for Christmas. And speaking of being ready for the Christmas holiday season, this Friday, December 15th, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. is the Old Manatee Candlelight Block Party. If you do not know what Old Manatee is, I am sitting in the middle of it right now. Old Manatee was actually the town that existed here even prior to Bradenton, and we are one of the 5 original buildings of the town of Manatee. And so this neighborhood is all considered the historic Manatee, the Old Manatee Historic District. And we are having a block party this Friday from 5 to 9, and there are a bunch of the businesses that will be participating with all kinds of goodies, including, like, we're going to have some crafts and some goodies. We're going to have a bunch of our neighbors who aren't on this area of the street necessarily that are going to be setting up. Here, we might have some artists out here to sell for you, or selling to you. We're going to have some crafts for the kiddos. We're going to see, there's going to be some special surprises over at Segunda Vida, like right at the beginning before the sun sets. So you want to come out around that 5 o'clock time. We're going to have some snacks and some goodies at Loving Hands. Vernona's going to have some specialty snacks. They're also going to be screening movies, I believe, inside of the restaurant, so you might be able to catch some Christmas movies. Vintage Vine is going to have snacks, goodies. A very special couple is going to be hanging out at Your Honeycomb all night. There are free pictures with Santa and Mrs. Claus over at Your Honeycomb. Great place to go. I know if you wanna get that picture with Santa for your family, you can bring your own camera or your own phone, and we will help you make sure you get that picture. It's gonna be a blast. Edelweiss is gonna have some specials. Central Cafe is gonna have some specials. You can come out and celebrate. The start of the holidays, the middle of the holidays, whatever you want to call it, with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. And again, there are some special surprises that you're going to need to be here for. And if, you're like, oh, that street's really long, I don't know, like, what about crossing the street? AC/DC carts will be out here to at least help with crossing the street. So definitely we're so thankful to have them as well. But we hope everybody will come out and join us. It's from 5 to 9. It's come and go as you want from each of the locations. You can walk down. There will be some luminaries on the street to help guide your path and keep it a little lighter for you. But we are so excited to have everybody there. And that's this Friday, December 15th. All right, I'm going to take another drink of this wine. Yes. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. All right. We are going to dive into some comics this week. So, first up, we've got Catfight from IDW, and this is actually issues 5 and 6 in one issue. There was a little bit of a delay on this, so they actually doubled up the title for us this month, which is really great because I have been waiting to see what was going to happen in this story. So, if you have not been following along, this is about a guy who is a cat burglar, and he is from a family of thieves, and his grandmother has owned like the greatest cat like crime syndicate in the world, and he wanted to make his own name, made some bad choices, ended up in debt to a person named Schrodinger. I literally, like, it's amazing, the cat puns on this, and he is now his grandmother has been killed, and he is responsible for it, according to everybody in, like, his crime family in the industry. And so everybody is coming after him. And as he is trying to clear his name, he learns there's so much more to the story and to the people that he has trusted or has not trusted his whole life. And he's starting to figure out what his grandmother's legacy and meaning for him actually is. And as you get both issues in this, you do actually get the wrap up of what happened. So I don't want to show you too much from the end. But if you like just like fun, like, again, like Ocean's 11 style crime stories and those big team ups, but you want to see like what would happen if you were the person who was already accused and you have to kind of go at it backwards. This is a great one for that. I really loved it. It was a lot of fun. If they wanted to do a sequel series to this and just keep going with some crimes that these people do, I would be 100% in for more catfight stories. Gunbreed, issue 5 from Blood Moon and Panico Press. We just had 3 weeks of Gunbreed in a row, and I'm not mad at it. Like, I've never had a Blood Moon weekly title, and I'm kind of like, let's just keep going with Blood Moon weekly titles, because this is super dope, and I'm excited about it. If you don't know about Gunbreed, it is all about a man who... It's in the Wild West, and his family, his son is killed, his wife dies, and he basically makes a deal with the devil. And it's kind of essentially like a gunslinger Spawn kind of thing, because he's kind of doing that Al Simmons, I've got to protect the innocent, go after the bad people, like... and so each issue, we've kind of seen a different mission from him and a different connecting point. And we kind of get a backstory of somebody who was wronged by the people of this town. And then we see him kind of step in. And so in this one, we see a group that has been wronged by the sheriff or a man who wants to be the sheriff, I guess I should say. And he's kind of like, oh, well, I'm going to use this as a way to get him to come back, and I'm going to go after him, and I'm going to tell him, like, he can get his son back if he falls in line and does all this. And of course, like, the son is dead, and he's like, no, you can't bring my son back. But then he realizes that maybe somebody could if he's, like, spent all this time protecting the people on Earth. And it's like, why didn't I just go back into hell and the underworld and find my son? And so we've kind of set up that that's what he's going to do at this point. Like, he's like, I'm going to, instead of taking down people on Earth that I don't really care about, I'm going to go and I'm going to literally raise hell to try to save my son and see if I couldn't possibly bring him back, or at least be reunited with him in some way. And issue 4 of this, we saw the backstory with, like, what happened with his wife and son, and it was totally tragic and incredibly well done. And so I have a feeling that issue 6, if it's going to show us having that experience of him going after his son, it's going to get back, be another super tragic issue, and I'm all in. Oh my gosh. My hair is getting long enough to make my nose itch if it gets in my face, so I'm like, stop it. Hollowed issue 5 from Keenspot. We've had a bit of a time between the last issue of this and this one. Keenspot is one of those where they don't identify whether their books are kid or adult, so I'm going to tell you this is an adult comic. It is all about 2 guys who are detectives who have been trying to find out about a butcher. Like, it started in one city and now it's gone to another, and so while they're from separate cities, they have to work together even though they hate each other to kind of solve this murder mystery. And they've been working on it so far, and in the last issue a lawyer showed up and was like, you can't talk to my client, you can't do any of like, you can't hold her, you can't do these things. And something happened with the client at the end of the issue. But in this one, the lawyer kind of comes back and is talking to the 2 detectives, and we find out some very, very, very strange things. There is a connection between all 3 of these people that we would not have seen coming, and there is going to be a little bit of a twist to the standard detective story. We're going to go a little bit more sci-fi, and I'm using that term little very, very loosely. So if you were holding off on this because you wanted to know what the turn was going to be, guess what? We actually just hit it in issue 5, and who knows how much longer this is going to go, because we have now opened up a can of little green worms, so to speak. So we're going to see where that goes for sure. Under the Influence, issue 5 from Mad Cave, and this is the wrap-up of this book series for us. And this has been such a good book that was just well done in so many capacities, and I feel like we've not talked about it enough. But this is, we're not going to show that page because that's just a big giant spoiler. This has been the story of a girl who was raised in a cult. And when she gets out of it, she ends up deciding, like, her way of wanting to help people is she kind of joins, like, the FBI, and she's somebody that they can send undercover. And they do send her undercover to a college because at this university, a guy is using social media to create a hot dog cult, essentially. And he's basically just getting all of these young people to do a bunch of really stupid things. And she goes undercover, and because she's not really a trained agent, she kind of messes up every single thing at every turn, and a lot of people ended up dead or hurt or in even more trouble than they started with. And in this issue, because this is her wrap-up, she kind of has to solve she's known like the solution the whole time, but in this one she's kind of has to fix all of the problems that she's caused, and she uses everything she knows to kind of do that. And it is such a great way to wrap up this story, and they did it using, this was like, let's use all of the tools that we have plus all of the tools of the bad guy and just like completely morph that into something else and go for it in a way that only somebody like her could. Like, this is definitely one of those, like, your main character is the only person who could truly see the outlying way to solve the story, and I thought it was such a great way that they did that. And I cannot wait to see more. Mad Cave is just crushing it right now. They're putting out so many good books. Their mini-series have been fire with so many great titles. And then we're going to see them come back with all this, like, intellectual property, licensed property in the spring, where they're going to have, you know, Dick Tracy and Gotcha Man and Flash Gordon coming your way. So we're going to have a really amazing 10-year anniversary year for Mad Cave next year. And I am so stoked for everything that they're going to do, because they're killing it right now. And if you're not picking up Mad Cave titles, you are missing out on some really, really great books. Quicksand, issue 5 from Scout Comics. This is the story of, I always say it's like Starship Troopers, but it's the story of a woman and her husband, and he goes to do this investigation of this, like, hole in, you know, we're going to say the sand in, like, Egypt. And he ends up finding all of these, like, crazy aliens and stuff, and he never comes back. And so she's like, well, now I have to go investigate this. And she shows up, and she's like, I'm going in, and I'm going to figure this out. And over the last few issues, she has been down in this hole, and we have seen, it's like 7 episodes of Doctor Who mashed up together. Like, we're getting, like, big, giant alien creatures. We're getting these, like, weird like sentient beings. We're seeing some time changes. We're seeing people kind of get possessed. We're seeing some, you know, hieroglyphic type drawings that kind of give us some history of what is actually happening. It has been a crazy story, and we kind of see where it's all going. This book is done by our, you know, our buddy of our store, Jonathan Hedrick, and so of course we are always happy to see what Jonathan's got coming up. This has just been a really fun book, especially again if you're fans of Starship Troopers and you just like to see military type people take on some giant bugs. This is a great lead into that for you. The Nasty, issue 5 from Vault Comics. I'm so excited this is back on the regular schedule because I was missing this book so much, and anything that comes out on the Nightfall imprint, which is the horror line from Vault, is always going to be a top read for me, and this one is no exception. This is all about a bunch of kids who hang out at their favorite local video store, and the store is going under, and so they're trying to save it, and the way that they decide to do that is by screening a movie that they find that's one of those lost footage, don't watch this movie, this is like the most violent movie of all time. And in the very first issue, when they're attempting to watch that movie and screen it themselves so that they make sure it's really it, the VCR eats it, and so they're like, oh my god, we've booked this festival, we've told everybody we have this film, we were trying to use it as a way to save the shop, what are we going to do? So they just decide that they're going to make their own movie, their own horror movie, and they've been working together on this production this whole time. Well, on top of that, our main character has had an imaginary friend his whole life who is basically like Jason Voorhees, and all of a sudden everybody else can see him, but he can't seem to do any real harm to anybody, so they are using him as the actual nasty bad guy in their movie. And now, as they are getting really close, things are starting to go wrong. People are doubting themselves. There is some issues with whether or not real injuries are being caused by the imaginary friend. And we find out in the last issue, and we start to see a big buildup for it in this one, that the woman who is kind of like the person behind like banning books and banning movies and all of that is coming for them. They have made her radar, and she is headed their way. And so I cannot wait for issue 6 because I want to see how they deal with that, because we could all use some tips on how to deal with that kind of situation. But also it's just been a really great, fun, classic slasher book that also like adds in so many levels of storytelling. It's been so good. Pick it up if you're a fan of slashers or just good slow moving horror. You get both, which is great. The Hollywood Special, issue 4 from IDW and their Dark Spaces imprint. If you don't know the Dark Spaces imprint, it is something that Scott Snyder is running over at IDW, and it is all about like places in our world that darkness just kind of thrives in. And so this story is set in the 1940s, and it follows the Hollywood Special, which is a train that was basically going around and selling victory bonds. And it's got 2 actors on it who were big stars at the time, and they are trying to get all of these people to just kind of show up and, you know, give money for victory bonds. Well, they show up to a coal mining town, and the only person there is a little girl on the tracks, and she's like, I promised my friend I would come in and get his plane signed for him because he loves you guys so much. And they're like, where's everybody else? And they're like, oh, they got trapped in the mine. And so the actors are like, oh my gosh, we have to go help these people. Well, turns out, much like a Silent Hill kind of situation, like the people are kind of aware that the town is filled with demons and darkness, and they know what's in the mine, but if anybody disrupts that, bad things happen. And we find out in this issue, particularly, like this bad thing kind of feeds off of those darknesses that we hide deep within ourselves. And our lead starlet has a lot of darkness buried not that far beneath the surface, and it is all coming out now as this demon essentially is feeding off of it that lies deep within the mines. And this book, it's getting darker and deeper, and I honestly like this. I want to see the Hollywood Special as a movie, like, or like the length of the Werewolf by Night, like that like mini movie kind of thing that Disney did, like one that was just even that long would be so good. Such a great book. The Hunger and the Dusk, issue 4 from IDW. This is G. Willow Wilson just doing what G. Willow Wilson does, which is writing great comic books. And this is a story of a world where orcs are trying to battle out, like, you know, they have always been separated from humans and everything else, like each other, like all the different types of orcs don't even talk to each other, but there are some dark creatures who have been coming out and just slaughtering humans and slaughtering orcs, and nobody can figure out where they come from or where they go and how they're doing all of this. And so an alliance is made not only between different orc tribes, but between orcs and humans, and they are working together to try to figure out how to stop these creatures. And we're following a bunch of different storylines. I love that this essentially just looks like the Lord of the Rings when the Fellowship gets together. We've been following a bunch of different groups, and in this issue, we see our 2 orcs that were married to tie 2 of the tribes together have now come before to meet at the council with all of the other ones, including their own parents, and they're starting to say, like, maybe we shouldn't be with the humans. This isn't really doing us any good. The humans aren't helping us. Like, the problem hasn't been solved. And this young couple chooses to kind of stand on their own and speak up for the new alliances and the things that are doing. And we're kind of seeing, like, what it's like to go against your parents' politics with their story. But we're also getting a story of an orc healer who is working with the humans and their group and all of the dangers that they are doing. They are known as the last men standing, but will they be is the question that we are going to find out. And we learn in this book that there is more to this mysterious group that has been slaughtering everybody than we knew. And so this is going to be really cool to see. Knights, issue 3 from Image Comics. I always describe this book as if Miyazaki was American and was writing modern American stories in that same kind of style. And you can kind of get that, I mean, especially because this is a Totoro homage cover. So obviously that's where they're going for, what they're going for. But this is the story of a town where one girl is a vampire, and she's like the town's vampire that they always, you know, every town gets one. And her roommates are 2 human boys and a man who is trapped inside of life as like a skeleton. Like, he has to live his punishment kind of in the way that Salem the Cat on Sabrina the Teenage Witch was turned into a cat. He was turned into a skeleton, and he cannot pass on or come back to life until he is cleared from his wrongdoings. But our young boy who was orphaned and has come to live with his cousin, the humans, is in love with this vampire girl, and he's trying to figure out a way to tell her how he feels. She also seems to have some very special emotions for him, but at the same time, there are these monstrous creatures that have been attacking the city, and we find out that part of her job as the vampire is to kind of keep these creatures at bay. And so she's fighting them in this issue, and we learn that there's kind of a real role that she's supposed to be playing and an agency that she's supposed to be working with. And we're getting a lot more in this issue, and we're kind of starting to see the turn. But seriously, if you wanted to know what a Miyazaki, an Americanized version of a Miyazaki story would look like, this is definitely feels exactly like that. You do get playlists, so you can scan each book, and you can get the song tracks for each issue. I love this series. I absolutely cannot wait to see where it goes. I love that they give you the in case you don't want to use the one type of media streaming service, you can actually see the names of the songs in order with the band, so you can just look them up that way as well. But this is such a fun story. It's so heartfelt. It's so real, and yet so completely drawn into a fantasy in that exact way that you would expect from a story like that. It's so good. And you know what? Taiko is one of the bands that is on the back this time, so on the list. And I'm a huge Taiko fan, so I guess I'm going to have to look up this time's playlist. Midlife, or How to Be a Hero at 50, issue 3 from Image Comics. And this is Brian Bucoletto, who did Chicken Devil. So if you were a fan of that awesome book that came out through Aftershock over the last couple years, you should definitely check this out. This is about a man who his father was a firefighter, and he was known as like the hero of the fire department. And everybody expected him to grow up and be just like his dad. And so now he has become a firefighter. But it turns out he's actually afraid of fire. And so he's never actually been inside of a fire. He's only just been a paper pusher. And at 50, he realizes that, you know, his wife is pregnant with a new child, and he is dealing with like a sister-in-law who keeps disappearing and kind of abandons her child. So they've been taking care of that one, as well as like a teenage child of his own. And so he has all that going on. And in the very first issue, he goes to talk to a homeless man that he's been helping out, and a fire ends up breaking out. And in the process of trying to rescue this man, he finds out that he has some special pyrokinesis type abilities. And so him and his buddies have gotten together and are trying to kind of figure out what that entails and how he can use it to actually save people and put out fires. And he's learning some dark secrets or some positive secrets. We're going to figure out which way, about his dad, and some people who are very much interested in the skills that he has. This has been such a fun book. I love it because since he's 50, he was like a teenager in the 90s, and so a lot of the things they go back to when he goes back to his teenage years are very similar to things that I experienced, so it's fun to see that for sure. Sidequest issue 3 from Scout Comics. If you have ever thought, I really want to know what it would be like if I could wake up inside of like my D&D campaign and just like live that life, or I want to go to a fantasy world, much like, you know, the way Dorothy actually could go back and forth, or Alice could go back and forth in the continuations of The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland. This guy kind of has that exact experience. He is also in that midlife time of crisis, essentially, and he is trying to figure out where he belongs. And so whenever he's stressed out, he suddenly just finds himself, you know, when he dazes off and wants to get away, inside of a fantasy world, much like you would create in a D&D campaign. And he is one of those guys who's just on this quest. He's helping people defend the world, and he's trying to save a lot of situations that are going on. And I love, there's this moment, because children always know, where he's sitting there and he's actually feeding his daughter in real life, and it like kind of just interjects. Like he's living this world, he's in a battle, all this stuff is happening, and suddenly he's just sitting at the table with his daughter, and she's like, Daddy, how come you go to an imaginary world instead of spending time with me and Mommy? Like, is it that bad? And it's like, oh, kids always know. And then he's like, no, not at all. And then he's right back into it, and some crazy stuff happens. We're going to see how this quest plays out for him as the series goes on, but I have a feeling there's going to be some very, very big heartfelt moments coming up in this next issue, now that he's kind of had that realization, and with some stuff that happened towards the end. Whew, it's going to get crazy. Negaduck issue 3 from Dynamite and their new Disney imprint. I mean, let's just call it what it is at this point. They've got so many Disney books coming out. Lilo and Stitch is about to drop. Cruella de Vil. So excited for both of those. But Negaduck, if you are a fan of Darkwing Duck, you know that he is the main villain, the antithesis to Darkwing. And he now has his own miniseries going on. And he has just recently broken out of essentially their Arkham Asylum. And he is trying to get King Midas's golden glove so that he can turn everything to gold and be the richest duck that there is. But all of the other villains are also trying to do that, and his once self-built team of the Fearsome Five have all ganged up without him, and they are trying to steal his plan, and he is on this hunt to get there first. And in this one, we kind of see all of these villains just traipsing through this jungle, falling for all these traps, and Negaduck kind of trying to figure out, like, is he going to be the one to defeat the people? Can he get his old team back? Is he going to ever have the power? And we learned that, as Midas has taught us many times before, that the ability to turn anything to gold isn't always the blessing that you think it is, and we're going to see how that plays out for good old Negaduck in the next issue. I love it because we don't actually, it's like not connected to the Darkwing story at all. So if you were like, I just really like the Darkwing Duck Rogues Gallery, you're getting a whole Rogues Gallery, but kind of in the same way we've had a lot of Joker titles recently, we're essentially getting that. The Sickness, Chapter 3 from Uncivilized Books. This is a very, very heavy book. We are running 2 different stories at a time in this. We've got 1945 with a boy named Daniel who is developing the sickness, and he is seeing all kinds of crazy things that just, like, every time he tries to, like, have a normal experience, and he's just kind of losing it, and he's really stressed about everything post-war and the world around him, and it seems to be causing him to have these hallucinations, or maybe they're coming from something else. At the same time, we are also seeing a story from 1955 with a man named George who is doing the research on this sickness, and he has been trying to put it together. He has found out that several people have testified that they had felt like somebody was following them, and then they started having the symptoms of the sickness, and I'm going to see if I can find a crazy page of the sickness, but they start to have all the same experiences, and this guy's like, I'm going to solve this, I'm going to figure it out, I'm going to put it all together, and I just want to show you some of the weird stuff that you see. Did I just, like, miss all of it? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, maybe I'm not going to show you the weird stuff of the sickness because I don't want to. It's like the last pages, and I don't want to ruin any of the spoilers. So, but yeah, so George is doing all this research, and as he's trying to put it all together, he's actually slowly finding that everything is slipping through his hands, and these 2 stories have yet to actually intersect. So we're going to see if maybe in the future they do. This is actually just a teaser for the Sickness #1 third print, so you can kind of see just some of those weird hallucinations and what they look like. And whether or not they're real, we're going to find out, because we still have really no idea what is going on in this book at all. Because George is the only one that's trying to piece together that something is happening. And because Daniel's a teenager in the 40s, they're kind of just like, oh, you're just being like a crazy kid. So nobody's started to piece any of this together yet because George is missing all the clues. And so we're going to see if we ever figure it out or if it just gets weirder as it goes on. Transformers, issue 3 from Image Skybound Comics. If you are a fan of anything from Generation X, Transformers or G.I. Joe specifically, you need to be reading these comics. This is a huge new thing with the Energon universe over at Skybound. And so G.I. Joe and Transformers exist in the same world. They are crossing over. This is it. Void Rivals kicks it off with kind of a little bit of a new world that's going to be the basis for all of this. And then Transformers came out, and in issue 2 of Transformers, we saw our first teaser of the G.I. Joe world and it connecting. So in Void Rivals, we saw our first teaser of Transformers, and then in Transformers issue 2, we saw our first teaser of some things for G.I. Joe. But if you are a fan of Transformers, you are getting all of your classics in here. You know, you've got Optimus Prime and some of his Autobots on Earth awakened when they find out that the Decepticons have already been, like, awake and stealing power and everything before. I have to show you this. Stealing power and getting all of the Energon supply, like, they're gonna be okay, and they're already way more powered up than the Autobots are, and they don't really know how they're gonna fix it. And then of course you've got your 2 kids that connect with them, and the Transformers like need their help, and they need the Transformers help. We just met a character with a name that you may recognize if you've seen some of the Transformers movies or watched the Transformers show in the last issue, and he is playing a little bit of a bigger role in this one. So all of your fan favorite experiences are here, and I like it because we are getting a lot of the Transformers and Decepticons that the movies didn't use, and kind of binging some of the ones that were overused. We are obviously still going to put Optimus Prime right at the top of the list of like our main character, but we are getting to see some of those other Autobots roll out. Case of the Bleeding Wall, issue 3 from Dead Sky. I love this because this is another one of those like slow moving horror books where it's like they keep talking about something happening, but we haven't really had much go on. It follows a woman and her new assistant as they travel to a house where they've been told there's all of this like haunted stuff. The walls are bleeding, things are really dark, the people don't want to live there anymore, and they're supposed to investigate it and hopefully get rid of these demons or ghostly spirits that are inhabiting this house and kind of solve the problem. The weird thing is this is like an ex for the detective, like the ghost detective. So somebody she kind of wants to still have a relationship, somebody she may, you know, would be okay with if it like led her to having a thing with. But we're also starting to see like where some lines are being drawn and where some like stark and creepy things might come from. We only have one more issue, and so these people are putting it together, and I think that towards the end of this issue we kind of have a really good idea from their side of what might be going on the human level, but whether or not we know still how to deal with the demons and the things inside, we're going to find out in issue 4, and I cannot wait to see how this wraps up. Ranger Academy issue 3 from Boom Studios. I always preface this with the fact that I am not the world's biggest Power Ranger fan, but I love this book. So if you don't know a lot of Power Ranger stuff, or if it's not normally like your thing, you can still get into this one. Obviously, I was a teenager in the 90s, so I have seen the original American Power Ranger show, so I do have like a reference point, but I feel like even if you didn't, you'd probably be fine. But this is about a girl who lived on a moon with her dad, and nobody was around. There was nobody else on the moon, and these two people crash land onto it, and she helps save them and get them the help that they need from her dad, and then they fix their ship and they send them on their way. She finds out that they go to a place called Ranger Academy, and they're like, oh, you can come on with us and you can have this big adventure. And the dad's like, absolutely not. So of course she sneaks away. She ends up joining them, and now she is at Ranger Academy, and she is supposed to be training to become a Power Ranger, which she has no idea what that means. But what she is discovering more so than that is she is finding out that her dad has some connection to the Rangers and the Ranger Academy, and there is something about him that he's never told her, and she is trying to uncover that while she's supposed to be training for her Ranger test. Meanwhile, in this issue, I'm not going to show you that because that's a giant spoiler. In this issue, she's actually learned that there is something that the Ranger Academy itself is keeping a secret from all of the students, and there may be more to the world of Rangers than they've ever been told before. This is very, honestly, I think it should have been a boombox title. It's very teen, young adult kind of style, young adult characters, young adult writing. I definitely think this is, if you are a parent who has kids and you are like that you're trying to get into Power Rangers because you're like, oh my god, Power Rangers is my thing and I can't get my kids into it, this might be a really good way to get them into that with you and kind of read that with them. Destiny Gate issue 3 from Image Top Cow. If you've ever wanted to see the horror movie version of It's a Wonderful Life, this is the book for you. I know that they've made that like fan cut where they show you It's a Wonderful Life trailer, like if it was a horror movie, and I feel like somebody just like Ryan Cady just like ran with that and went for it, because that is exactly how I feel about this. This is a man who gets on a train and suddenly finds himself going through all of the worst moments of his life, all the indecisions, all the bad decisions, everything he's done. And it's like each stop is, if you want to get out, if you want to keep going, you're going to have to face this thing that you've done or this thing that you refuse to do. And which is where we are in this issue. Last issue was kind of like he was facing a lot of his regrets of bad decisions he made. In this one, it's really hitting on, you didn't do this and you could have. And there's even a point in here where he like faces his family and he's like, wait, I never did anything bad to my family. And they're like, that's the thing though, is you didn't do anything good for your family either, because you're so worried that you're going to do the wrong thing that you're actually just ignoring your family, which at the end of the day is a bad thing to do to your family. And so that's kind of the big obstacle he has to face in this one if he's going to make it through. I believe it said that the next issue is going to be his last stop on the train ride. So we're going to see where that's going to take him and what that's going to lead us to for the future. But a dark and creepy It's a Wonderful Life is definitely what we're getting there. The Midnight Show, issue 3 from Dark Horse. Speaking of found footage style things, this is about a movie that existed that was basically like an all-out monsters attack for the Universal Monsters, but the movie was lost and nobody has seen it, and it gets found and is played, screened at a movie theater, and these kids go to see it, and when they are watching the movie, a bunch of bats come flying out of somewhere, and essentially the monsters from the movie start breaking through the screen. Suddenly they are being attacked by Dracula, they are being attacked by the Wolfman, the Mummy is there. In this issue, we have a great scene where they walk out onto the street, and all the streets keep changing to be to be like, look like the ones in the movie, and all of a sudden this street just gets filled with water, and their guide, who is essentially Van Helsing, is like, oh no, it's him. And it's like, oh yes, it's him. We're getting the creature from the Black Lagoon. This is the moment I've been waiting for. And the Van Helsing guy is like, the only thing we can hope for is that all these monsters will fight themselves and take each other out, because there's no way we can take them all out. So we get some all-out monsters attack, and it's awesome. And I just really want to see all the Universal monsters just like go at it and possibly like team up, maybe, I don't know. But as a Universal Monsters fan, I kind of find myself rooting for all of the monsters. I'm like, this is one of those times where I'm usually like, I want the human story, but like the humans are just getting slaughtered in this. So I'm like, all right, let's move the humans to a safe space and just let all the monsters do their thing for a little bit, because I want to see how that plays out. Kill Your Darlings, issue 3 from Image Comics and the KLC, otherwise known as Kids Love Chains Press. If you are a fan of the like Stegman and His Amazing Friends show, or the Devil's Advocates book club, you may know Griffin Sheridan and Ethan Parker, who were known as the Supple Boys on the internet, and they are the writers of this series. This is their book they've been working on, and this is all about a young girl who, when she was a child, had an imaginary world, and in that imaginary world, she was the queen of the world, and she helped all of her creatures and kept them safe. And one day while she's there, a darkness overtakes that world, and something bad happens, not only in her imaginary world, but to her real world. And it puts her into an institution where she is essentially raised. And while she is there, as she grows up, she becomes a teenager. And one day, an imaginary friend of hers shows up and says, you have to come back because our entire world is in distress, and it's because you're gone, and only you can save us. And she ends up escaping from the institution that she is in and heads back towards her imaginary world. And she gets there in this issue, and we see that, like they said, there's a lot of things that are happening. A lot of bad is going on. We see, you know, the world is becoming black and white and grayscaled, and just you know, her bright rainbowy colored land is becoming murky, and she is going to have to save the day. But whether or not she can, whether or not she understands how, is going to involve her facing her own demons in order to do this. So this is very like something epic. Oh my gosh, what is the Maxwell's Demons kind of story? Like, if you're looking for something that fits into that kind of category, you're going to find that here. I'm going to take another drink of this wine before we get to the number 2s. We are drinking Sterling Vintner's collection. It is a Cab Sav from California, and it is, we were talking about it earlier, it's got a lot of that spice to it, but it's a smooth, like there's a smooth overtone to it, so it doesn't really feel too spicy or too intense. But it is very delicious, and it's definitely a good one that you can drink on its own. But like we were saying earlier, it's also going to be one that's going to be really good paired with like your holiday meal, or even, I said, like, it would be really good with Christmas cookies, because it's got enough of that vanilla that it'll bring that out. Delicious. All right, we're going to jump into number 2s. I'm going to go with this one first. No, I'm not, because I already wrote it down. Petrolhead, issue 2 from Image Comics. I love this book. Issue 1 was a pick of the week, which is a totally off-the-wall pick for me, but I already know that this is filled with so many feelings that are going to come, that I am so stoked for them. But this is a girl and her dad who live in a world where again, one of those like bubble kind of worlds where all the rich people are in this like specialty city and everybody else is kind of pushed to the outside. Well, not only are humans that don't qualify to their standards pushed to the outside, but so are old robots who have been used and abused and thrown aside. And so the dad is like the chief scientist, and he has figured out some secrets to the society that they don't want him to know and that they don't want anybody else to know. And so the dad and daughter are now on the run, and they end up crossing paths with an old racing robot, because the first book tells us that we used to have some robots that essentially did pod racing, kind of drag racing. And so they end up meeting up with a robot who is a former drag racer and his animatronic bird, and the two of them are about to take off in this new car that he's just built. And so they all four end up teaming up, and they are on the run. And basically we learn that none of them have any love at all for the people in charge, and the people in charge are definitely super shady. And I love it because they have this computer program for the car, like a GPS type thing, but you know, it does way more than that. And he's got a Cockney accent. And so the bird and the little girl are all like, I don't understand anything he says. And she's like, why? What is going on? And the bird's like, oh, it's Cockney. And he's being Cockney. And she's like, what does that mean? Why did he pick that as the avatar's voice? And he's like, oh, well, he saw a show and he thought it was really funny, so he decided to make that the voice. But now nobody knows what the robot is, like what the animated guy is saying. And so they're all trying to decipher what it is because they need their way like out of the city, but none of them actually can understand any of the things he's saying. So it's really funny. It's a great little add-on for humor because most of it is very serious and very heartfelt as we get to see the different parts of the cities, terrible behaviors and all of the things that we're going to see from these people. But we are starting to see that this robot may have more of a heart than he wants us to believe he does. And I think there's going to be some big moments with the father and the daughter as the series comes in, and it's I can't wait. I already know, like, I'm already like ready for my heart to be broken in whatever capacity is going to happen. Subgenre issue 2 from Dark Horse and the Flux House, which is Matt Kent's imprint for Dark Horse. This is all of his like creator-owned titles essentially, but this is about a guy who is working essentially as a detective, and in the first issue he's having to look into some book related mysteries, and we find out there's like this secret society of people who deal with literary crimes and situations. And in this issue, well, at the end of the last issue, he kind of ended up taking place in like stepping into one of these stories. And so in this one, it kind of opens up with him, and he's like a barbarian, and he's fighting all of these people, and he's just like, oh, this is what I do. And suddenly somebody is like, actually, it's not really what you do. This is just what you're doing right now because you're in that story. And he's like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, this is like the story of your most primal instincts. So in this one, you have that role, but you've also had these other roles at these other times. And he's like, what are you talking about? I don't understand what is going on. And so we kind of start to pull back out and remember that there is more to the story than what we're seeing. And so he's like, wait, well, so what am I supposed to do? And they're like, well, you'll figure that out later. And so I love it because we're getting these little different adventures at the beginning of each story, and then we're kind of seeing more of it come too. And in this one, he, you know, is like, oh, I have to get to the wizard. The wizard's going to have the answers. And then it's kind of like, maybe the wizard's just the writer. Maybe there's something more to it. And I love it because they talk about like, oh, well, you can do magic. And it's like, well, no, we didn't really do this magic or anything. And they like literally call him like, they say words have the power to create and destroy entire worlds. And that's why like the IP man is one of the bad guys and things like that. But I love it because they're like, oh, you need to have, like the woman's like, we need to get you a second draft. And she spells it, you know, like a written draft. And he's like, oh, I already had a draft and it was great. And he's talking about a beer. And she's like, no, no, that was the first draft. It's really rough. It kind of just sets you up for what's going to happen. But the second one goes down way smoother. And so she's just talking about like stories, and I love that conversation. It's so great. Any literary jokes that you can ever put in your story are always going to seal me as a fan of your story. And so I cannot wait to see where this goes. I want to see what the next adventure is. I want to see what he determines with this wizard or writer, as it were. But I'm always just excited to see what Matt Kent puts out, because he's such a great story weaver. Empath issue 2 from Black Box Comics. This is a new superhero story about a guy who is an empath, but so strongly that he can literally, like, he consumes people's emotions and kind of lives in them. And in the first issue, towards the end, he specifically saw a guy who was preying on women. And he was like, I have to stop this. I have to do something about it. And ends up overtaking too many of the emotions and getting hurt and ending up in the hospital. And at the same time, in that hospital is his sister, who has is not doing well. She's not going to make it. And he's kind of been trying to give her some of his positive emotions he's been consuming, and kind of trying to hide his own emotions, because he knows he's going to lose his sister, and he doesn't want to accept that. And at the same time, he's got people who are like, hey, you can't keep doing this. You're hurting yourself. Every time you take in somebody's dark emotions, if you take in anger, you become angry. If you take in, any of this, like, you just lose it and you can't control yourself. And he's like, I don't care, because there are women that are being attacked and hurt by this man on the street, and I'm going to stop that, and maybe I'll consider slowing down after that, but until I stop this man who's preying on women, like, I'm not gonna quit. And so we see him kind of push himself really far, and we set up for where he's gonna go with that in the next issue. But as a hero, like, I already dig that he's like, no, I know I should probably slow down, but like, injustices exist, and somebody's got to stand up for these people. And if that means, and it's just totally an empathic thing to do, though. Like, I mean, yeah, I should take a break for myself, but like, other people are hurting, so I can't. Fire and Ice, issue 2 from Dynamite. Not to be confused with the Fire and Ice Welcome to Smallville book that is coming out from DC, which they both came out this week, which was very, very confusing. Yeah, I was like, a lot of people were confused about that. They're two very, very different books. This is from your, Frazetta Conan verse, and not from the DC universe at all. And this is about the two different realms of one being of fire and one being of ice, and the long-lasting war that they've been in against each other, and how they are determined to take each other out. And in this issue, in the last issue, we kind of saw the setup for the fact that, like, the women were running the show behind the scenes, and these men were in all of these battles, and the women were trying to actually figure out how to stop these wars or control these wars. But in this issue, we see that the Fire Kingdom is like, you know what, let's make this a real war. Let's just actually destroy ice. And they call all these other people together. And meanwhile, the ice people are like, oh my gosh, they've come after our prince. We need to do something. And so they're like, well, let's try to hit them first, because as long as we hit them before they can release the fires, then there's nothing they can do, because we'll have iced over everything. And so we've got two people who are preparing for a war, one that's got everybody with them, the other that is going to have a very rude awakening, and we are going to see how that plays out in the next issue. Bless you. Nomad, the Unconquerable, The Cave of Broken Tombs, issue 2 from BattleQuest. Nomad is such a beautifully drawn book. There's so much fine art to the way that they draw this book. And if you didn't read volume 1, please go back and do so. That is in trade paperback form if you prefer that. But Nomad Nomad the Unconquerable is the king of this realm. And in volume 1, he goes on this quest that he's set to go on, and he's like kind of charged to do it by both his people and their god. And ends up finding out that this long-standing race of people that has been missing was basically enslaved by these alien creatures, and it was his responsibility to save them. And he did all of that, but because it took him like decades and decades to do this, and he got stuck in like this time loop, everything moved on without him back home. And his son, who was left orphaned and alone because something happened to the mom that you have to read Nomad Volume 1 to find out, he was like kind of pushed aside by the people, and now he's just kind of trying to defend himself in the regular way. And in this volume, we're seeing the son story and him trying to figure out like where is my place and what I'm supposed to do. And in this issue, he learns a little bit about what that's going to entail for him and the big adventure that his father actually went on, and the world that they expect to see for him and from his dad and whatever legacy he left through that. But I love this because this blue scale is such a different, unique tone to put it in. Instead of putting it in black and white or even a gray scale, they went completely blue, which works so well because all the worlds are either like water based or really icy based or really snow based, and so it just kind of works that everything would look really blue, and it makes that detail really, really pop. And the lack of gutters on so much of it, or the black gutters, like really just make that art stand out. And that's what I'm saying, like you got to go back. The first volume was just absolutely extraordinary art, and this storytelling has been great. It all feels like you're listening to folklore from you know, some hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. The Space Between, issue 2 from Boom Studios. Issue 1 was the pick of the week for me, and I said when I read issue 1, I was like, this could be a one-shot, but it specifically says that there's another issue, and I wasn't sure how they were going to do it, but it turns out we're going to fast forward. And so issue 1 of this story takes place on a space station, and it shows how even in space we would become really classist and elitist. And it was basically like, oh, if you work in the bottom, you're not allowed to talk to the people on the top. And of course, though, all the like propaganda that comes out is that we're all one, we all have our role to play. But in issue 1, a woman and a man connect. She is from the upper class of the spaceship, and he works in the bottom. And they fall in love with each other, and they essentially throughout their story end up changing a lot of the politics and connections of this space station. However, now we fast forward to when it's literally like her grandchild's world. And while some things have changed, of course, that progress ended up being very, very small. And we are back down and following a guy primarily from the lower levels. And he's like, oh, well, just because we can do all these things now, we actually are still segregated and still like the system is completely against us. And one of his friends is like, oh, well, have you heard this new speaker? He's telling everybody kind of what you feel. And it's trying to show us that we can take down like the top. You know, and they go to hear the speaker speak, and literally this is all in like the first 2 pages. We find out that the speaker isn't what he's supposed to be. And the one friend that like suggested in the first place is like, I'm out. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. And that the friend is like, Pari, who's our main character, is like, no, I think he's got a really good point. Well, as Pari begins to get closer to him and work with him, and he sees that politicians don't play the game in a fair and just way, and always have their own narrative that they are trying to push. And he meets a young girl who is the granddaughter of our character from the first issue, and sees how she is mistreated and manipulated by them. And as they build their connection, we see that sometimes we think we've made a lot of progress with the way that we've moved forward in politics and in injustices, and it turns out that we actually haven't, and it takes somebody completely standing up again and saying, hey, we didn't actually get that far. But we get them wrapped up in these like beautiful human connection stories, and it's actually very, very good. I love the duality of the title, The Space Between, because not only is it obviously about like the space, but it is also about the physical space between the classes and the way they're doing, but also like the space between 2 people and the way they interact with each other. It's such a great book. It's such a great title. Highly recommend for anybody. If you didn't read issue 1, grab 1 and 2 and just fall in love with a almost anthology-esque series because of the gap between the 2. And I know that like whatever the 3rd issue is going to be a completely different one. And it seems like it's just going to kind of be like, how do we move forward and make these changes, but how do we also connect with people? Blade in the Dark, issue 2 from Scout Comics. Another one of those books that is just very beautifully drawn in the way that and the story blends so well with that. But this is all about a boy who is basically a Ronin, for his world, and like his village is burned, and his village was in charge of like this magical sword essentially, and he has the sword, but he has the sheath, which is like the bamboo sheath that it goes in, but he doesn't have the sword, and he is supposed to reunite the two so that he can save his village, because that is his, even though it's already been destroyed, but because that is the charge of his people, and he has been fighting these demons essentially along the way, and in this one he meets a trickster changeling who basically controls, he can puppeteer people, and he has the two like marionette sticks, and he can basically use them to manipulate them, and the two battle, and our young Ronin is like, well, I'm off, I'm going to go continue my job, and this trickster is like, well, I don't have anything else I'm doing, I'm gonna go with you, and maybe I can be some help along the way, but if not, it'll probably just be fun for me. And we get to see the two of them go to the next town and face the next darkness and villains and monstrous things. And where this will go in the future, there's so many ways. We know who our ultimate bad guy is, but we just found out about some really treacherous things afoot for the future, and so I cannot wait for issue 3. It's really well written story of this guy's journey, and I want to see how it plays out for him. Blood Commandment issue 2 from Image Comics, and our amazing creator, the one-man artist behind Something Epic. This is their take on essentially like the vampire story, and this follows a father and son who have moved out to the middle of nowhere. They've got their own past that the father is trying to hide. He was a part of something that he doesn't want anybody to know him or know anything about, and he has been training his son essentially for one of those somebody is coming to get me kind of situations. You need to be prepared for it. And the time has come. The time has come. And I had to show you this double page spread because this is wicked. If you are a fan of vampire stories, but you want to see like the actual, like, you know, the bad vampires, because so much of it has been like, let's humanize vampires, and we're going to get that. We're going to get a little bit of that, obviously, from some kind of connection point with this, the father-son relationship and wherever they fall into this humanized story. But we are going to get those full-on bad vampires who are like, I'm just here to destroy you. And you're going to get some awesome moments like that double page spread I just showed you. The issue 1 was all the setup of the heart between the father and son, and issue 2 is all about like, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's jump in. Let's get this action. Let's see what's happening. And we still have a police officer who is investigating some things that are happening, and so he's like kind of outskirts, putting it together in the city, what's possibly going on. So you're gonna get that, you know, you get a lot of your horror elements that you see in everything else, but I love this art. Obviously, you know, if you watch the show, you know that I love Something Epic for the art and the story, and they always blend so well together, and this is so good. So good. Check it out. Yes. Our Bones Dust, issue 1 from Image Comics. For all of my fans of,
Did we move to number 1s?
I guess we did. This is it. This is the first one. We're on the first one. Yeah, we are on number 1s. Yes. We are on our number 1s there. But this is a new story from Image, and it kind of falls into that Tank Girl kind of story, or Mad Max. I was like, what is the name of that? Where water is gone and people are trying to use it as a form of currency. And in this very first couple pages, a young boy comes up on a group of people who have water, and he steals it, and in the process takes out a ton of the people. And it's like, how is this little kid just destroying all of these people? And then we kind of flip over to this weird robot-y creature who's like walking through and like just like doing a survey of what's going on in this weird world. And so we have no idea where he came from. We have no idea what it is. He at some point is like talking to the dead bodies. Like, kind of Turbo Kid-esque. Like, he kind of is like, oh, like, hey, what's up, this Mr. Dead person? And, like, we see, like, somebody else do that later on. Like, people kind of just start talking to the bones, and we don't know what these robots are, where they came from, but they seem to be like, we're not supposed to meddle in human affairs, but they're totally meddling in human affairs, much like any gods do. And we see a group of people who are like, hey, we want to trade some humans that you could eat in exchange for water. And the people who have all the water are like, no, but if you want water, what you can do is you can find that little kid that stole a bunch of it from us and bring him back. And so this story is going to be all about this kid, where he comes from, where he's going, what he's doing. And now, like, these robot guys are also interested because they're like, who is this robot and who is this kid, and like, why is everybody following him? And so we're gonna see where this goes. This is such an interesting take. Like I said, it's like, you know, all in that Mad Max Tank Girl Turbo Kid kind of style. It feels a lot like that, but without there's no humor. So if you wanted like more of a serious version of that, you're gonna get that. Time Traveler Tales issue 1 from Dark Horse. This is, so far, this first issue is very all ages. Even the ad on the back is actually an all ages book. So this one is definitely something you can share with a younger reader. But it is about a boy who wakes up outside of what looks like a zoo, and he's like, oh my gosh, like, where am I? What time am I in? And then this kid who's in a cage is like, oh, you landed in the perfect spot. You're here with me, and I can help you. And also, like, those tigers and leopards and stuff, they're totally nice. Come to find out, like, this boy and his dad have rescued a bunch of animals from a circus that was mistreating them, and now this little time-traveling kid is going to help them continue to protect these animals, at least for this adventure. We'll see if he continues to stay in this time frame or if he's going to keep going. I imagine, since it's called Time Traveler Tales, that each issue he will wake up and find himself in a new adventure, and we will get to go along the way with that. But if you are looking for a time traveling book for kids of all ages, this looks like it's going to be one for that. Again, like, the book on the back is even advertised as an all ages book, so I think we found a nice little time travel book for young ones.
From Dark Horse.
From Dark Horse. Which they have the Star Wars kids line, so that makes sense. The Wire Fence. This is a one-shot from Comics Experience Publishing, and this is about a kid who is in the Old West, and his only skill really is that he likes to make toys. And he is in a town where people come and they try, like, the sheriff is really corrupt and all of the other people in the town are very corrupt, and everybody comes in and tries to, you know, do the high noon standoff, and everybody dies. And this kid's like, I feel like this person could be the one that's coming to save us, but I don't know, because nobody can defeat the sheriff. And he's like, so I don't know what's going to happen. And then we find out a little bit about this mysterious person, and essentially our character is narrating the story of this person and kind of telling us who they are. We find out that our mysterious person is BBQ. I'm not going to tell you any more about them, but that they have this magical ability to work with barbed wire. And we see how that comes to play and what that can do for this kid's life, for the people of the Old West. And we just get this nice little story that's like, hey, I had this experience one time, and I think this person really changed my life, and I just kind of want to share this story of this, like, lonesome stranger, essentially, that came in and changed my whole life. Which kind of feels like what Old Western movies really were, but you get a little bit of, like, a supernatural element, but I like it because it's like we're never really also going to define any of that at the same time, because you're just getting this person who had this experience, like, telling you the story, which I love because you never know the whole story. Archie's Christmas Spectacular, which is obviously a one-shot from the Archie Comics world. If you're a fan, you know that we get all of these great holiday specials, and I know that this goes from my hands to Matt specifically.
And a new movie.
And a new movie, which I'm very excited to watch if you haven't seen it yet. It's Archie's in India, and I cannot wait to see it. But as always, we get a new story at the very beginning, and this one is all about the gang trying to make a beautiful Christmas party, and while they're waiting for Jingles and Sugar Plum to come help them, actually Jingles and Sour Plum show up, and they destroy everything, and they, you know, have to fix things and make it work again. And then we see a bunch of other stories that we always get, you know, the Christmas hijinks. We get stories of, you know, Veronica overspending and having to get a job. These are, of course, all the reprints. I love the one where Veronica has to get a job because she has to wrap Christmas presents, and she's actually awful at it. And Betty comes to save the day, but then Betty gets sick, so of course Veronica has to do it herself, and it's Veronica. She figures out a workaround. There's also one where they find out that Christmas spirit is really low, so they're like, oh, well, maybe we should have a competition, and the girls should try to see if they can, like, do whatever they want to come up with Christmas spirit, and the boys should see what they can come up with for Christmas spirit. But, of course, it just makes them all argue and get mad at each other because the boys want to do one thing and the girls want to do another, and it doesn't work out. And so they have to relearn the magic of Christmas. And then we've got one where Jinx is a bad luck, you know, where he's like, oh, well, I have all this bad luck, and everywhere I go is, and it's, you know, I'm making everything a mess. And so Jingles is like, oh, here's a pin so that you can have good luck wherever you go, and you'll share that. And, of course, we learn that. You know, it's just got to learn to believe in yourself and believe that you can be a good person and a good help. And so it's just all the fun of Archie, all the hijinks, and of course, all the joy of Christmas. But the new comic is actually written by Tom DeFalco, and Holly G does the art. So and then of course the other ones feature a lot of your arch faves in there as well. Orcs, The Gift, issue 1 from Kaboom, which is the kids imprint of Boom Studios. This has actually been a series that's been going on and on for a long time, and I love that they acknowledge that. They just kind of give each volume has a different name, but in the very beginning of Orcs, they started with like an old lady orc telling a story to the kids. And she's like, well, I can't tell you the rest of the story because we're waiting on one of the other orc kids to come home. And they're like, but we've been waiting 2 years for the end of this story. And of course, they're like supposed to be kids who are just being really elaborate and like complaining. But if you've been following orcs, we've been waiting 2 years for the end of this story. So I love that little nod to that. But this is basically just the story of some orcs who are supposed to do, you know, what's the way? They always are the ones they send out to retrieve things or take on the jobs that nobody else wants to do. They get all the worst jobs for the kingdom, and they always end up kind of messing it up a lot of the time. But they seem to, like, pull it off in the end, and this is no exception to that rule. This is another one where we get to see one of their adventures, and they are supposed to be helping these elves. Like, these elves bring food, and they're supposed to be delivering it. And one of the elves one of the orcs has recently learned that if he might have this magical power that he never knew he had. And he makes a joke like, wouldn't it be funny if the mushrooms that the elves brought got switched, and all the like funny mushrooms ended up like with in replacement for the eating mushrooms, and all the funny mushrooms we were supposed to like give to the witch for all her magical potions, like ended up being what people ate, and what people ate ended up being delivered to the witch. But because he has this weird magical power, that's actually what happens. And so everything just gets really crazy for the people who have now partaken in the food. And some become really crazy and like extra violent, and some like just go like hilariously funny. It's a fun, again, it's Kaboom, so it's their younger line, so it's something you can share with everybody. But it's absolutely funny, and if you're looking for just a fun story. You don't have to be reading the rest of Orcs to pick it up, but I know a lot of kids who are like, oh, I want something that feels like D&D but isn't necessarily D&D, so that's a good one, and I feel like it works a lot for adults. I had a lot of adult subscribers to that title back in Austin, so adults do love it too. Dead Detective issue 1 from Black Box Comics. This is about a detective and his partner who are investigating something that they think is just a normal investigation, and in the process they find out that it's not normal. I'm just gonna show you this. It is like crazy cultish activity, and they're like, oh my god, what is happening? Like, all right, let's just go like further, let's just go down this rabbit hole, let's dive deep, let's figure it out. And they end up going after these people to kind of try to solve it, and they end up in a whole mess of trouble very quickly, and some big things happen everywhere else along the story, and I don't really want to tell you anything past this page because it switches really fast. Like, as these people start to go into it and they start to try to figure out and unravel the clues and solve this thing, lots of stuff goes wrong, lots of stuff goes crazy. Just read it and find out what happens. Yeah. Stuff of Nightmare, Sleigh Ride. This is a one-shot from Boom Studios and the R.L. Stine Stuff of Nightmares. So if you were a kid who read Goosebumps, and then you were a teenager who read Fear Street, and now you're an adult and you're like, man, I sure do miss Goosebumps. Guess what? You're in good company with everybody else of your generation, but R.L. Stine is back with Stuff of Nightmares, and he is giving you all of the horror that you wanted as a kid, like loved as a kid, but in adult form. And this is a story of a man who has always had the job of being Santa at the mall, essentially, like in a department store. And he shows up for his annual appointment to do that, and they say, actually, we're not doing that this year. We don't need you. Go ahead and just go ahead and leave, because we're not going to pay you to do it. We're not going to give you that experience. And he's like, but I need the money. I count on this every year for my money. And they're like, that's too bad. And he decides if he can't have a holly jolly Christmas, nobody else can either. And he starts going after everybody who ruined his Christmas cheer. And it's very dark and very, very much the adult version of Goosebumps all at the same time. So if you want a classic horror story in the Christmas spirit, there it is. And I'm just like selling books to Matt now, guys. Creep Show. This is their Christmas holiday special. And I'm also going to just hand this one to Matt at the end, because the very first story in it, we always get 2 stories, is written by one of our favorites, Daniel Kraus, the writer of the Autumnal, who is absolutely fantastic. And honestly, we need to give Daniel Kraus a full-on, I'm just going to show you this, the full-on Creep Show title for, like, just to write, like, the Crypt Keeper type character that is it, because this man is good, so good at horror that honestly, like, his story is good, but his writing of the Creep Show, Crypt Keeper kind of guy is absolutely flawless the way it's supposed to be. But his story is all about a young girl who is being bullied by her older family members who are like trying to tell her about all of the horror people that come out at Christmas time who attack people, little kids like her. And of course they just build up this terrible situation for her and make it seem like it's going to be the worst Christmas ever. And, things happen when you are a bully. And then the second story is all about some people who are porch pirates and the comeuppance that gets from stealing people's packages at Christmas. Don't do that. Don't be that jerk. And if you want to know why you shouldn't be that jerk, you should read this issue, because you will see exactly the terrible things that could await you inside of the packages if you make that mistake. And it is dark and creepy, and honestly, it is a very good choice for your holiday special. This was a solid episode of Creep Show, in my opinion. But of course, again, please just give Daniel Krause more horror books, because he's so good. Bloodrick, issue 1 from Image Comics, and I love that they put the name of the book down here so that when you couldn't read it in the like ancient metal fonts, yeah, it's supposed to look like Old English, like, or Old Viking, like Norse kind of thing, but I'm like, that's a heavy metal font, and it's just a little hard to read. But I was surprised. And I started this book by reading this page, and I recommend everybody does too. This is a comic that the creator wrote and drew about writing this story, and it goes through the fact that he's been working on this for 10 years, and like it was kind of like that side piece that he'd work on every time he was like, oh, I need something to take my mind off the thing I'm actually working on. But then was like, I really want to be a comic creator, but then would go back to like his day job because it wasn't working for him. And then we finally get this story, and he did such a good job with it. And he is all about Bloodrick, who is a barbarian, and he lives out in the woods, and he's hungry, and he's looking for food, and he's kind of like, I can't find anything. Did I eat everything that had already existed? He kind of talks about how he's one of those people who like never misses. He's able to take out anything, and he's the only one, so he's this only human, so he just kind of thinks like all animals exist for him, and everything in nature is like exists for his purpose, and he's looking for something. And he doesn't understand why the nature is not giving it to him. And it's all, for the most part, it's like oral history. Somebody is telling this story about Bloodrick, and we see little bits of that every once in a while. But we just watch as Bloodrick makes his way through the snowy fields looking for something. And what he finds is not what he thought he was going to find, for sure. And the situation kind of escalates very quickly. I don't want to show you that because that's the end, and I don't want to show you that. But I really just, you can tell that this is a labor of love. Like when you read this, you can see that so much like heart and soul went into every piece of this. And I love that. I love that he shared that journey with us at the beginning. And I love how much this poured into that, and how much we're going to see so much more of that as the story unfolds. And I want to kind of see where Bloodrick's journey goes, for sure. All right, we got 2 picks of the week, and one of them is going to surprise you probably for me because it is superhero based. But I love superheroes. Don't let me lie to you like that. But it's The Miracles from Comics Experience Publishing. This is issue 1. And honestly, it's in my picks week because it did surprise me so much with what it did. And because of some really great Jack Kirby-esque style art that you're going to see in here. But it starts very much in your modern time period, and it follows a young kid who is getting bullied for being different in school. He's a teenager, and he's kind of just like over it. And finally, one day, he decides to stand up to the bully, and shockingly, like, does not get hurt in this fight. And he's like, I have no idea where this is coming from. I don't know what's going on. But he's like, you know what? But my superheroes would have done this. And you see, every time he's reading his comic book, you get this classic comic style, which is what really, like, I opened this up and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I'm already sold. Like, you blended modern and classic comic style. And I'm so in to see how this is going to play out. And it does so well because, like, this kid goes home and he's like, dude, I've got superpowers. I don't know what this is. I don't really care. Like, I don't care if they're temporary. I don't care where they came from. I'm just going to go help people. And he starts actually doing that. And as he's helping people, he's like, I read comic books. And as somebody who reads comics, and he's narrating this, like, as somebody who reads comics, you cannot come to a point where you don't think my goal is to help people in life. Like, how can you read about heroes who sacrifice themselves at every turn and not want to help people? And he ends up getting the chance to actually meet some people who are the superheroes from the comics he loves. Like, they actually show up, and he's like, oh my God, I thought you were fake. How are you real? How are you here? And they're like, so we have a lot to tell you about this world. And they're like, but you can't just go around like helping people in this way. And he's like, that's not a thing. I'm never going to stop. Like, I don't care if that puts a target on my back. I don't care if that makes me, like, in danger. I don't care what it means. Like, as long as there are people in trouble, like, I'm going to help them in whatever way I can. And if I have these superpowers, that means I can truly help them. But you get these classic stories. There's so much that I cannot tell you, because that's what made it a pick for me, is that it, like, completely just went in these, like, this is so many different directions. And then I got to this page, and honestly, this is the moment where I was like, all right, this is this pick for me. This is when the superheroes are actually explaining how superheroes are in our reality, and just the whole situation that they went through. And they do it while they're telling the story. We see it in their classic comic form, and it is so well drawn and so well done as a storytelling element that blew my mind. I'm so excited to see where this goes. Like, you get a lot of your classic superhero tropes in here, a lot of them, not like, and yet it works so well because he is obsessed with comic books. And so it was like, okay, yeah, like, of course you're going to get a lot of the tropes where he's going to be like, woohoo, like, I got my powers, let me fly around, let me see if I can do this, let me see if I can do that. Like, you're going to get that, obviously. And who wouldn't? If you're a comic book fan and you suddenly, like, were taking on your bully, and you have your Captain America moment of, like, I don't like bullies, I don't care where they come from, and then you find out that you can do all this stuff, and you're going to test it. You're going to be like, oh my God, I have to do this. And you're going to have that cheesy, excited moment. And then what do you do after that? Like, do you have that moment of, I have to help people? And do you have that moment of, I've got to do the wrong thing? You know, like, oh, I want to do this for my personal gain. Do you have the moment where you're like, I'm not going to do anything with it because it's not my problem? Like, all of those things kind of go through your head. And so we see this, and we see it from a teenage boy. And at the same time, there's so much in here about, like, these superheroes are like, well, we're not from this universe. And so part of why we don't want to do anything is like, it's not our, like, they, you know, there's one of them that's like, we're not from here. It's not our problem. And it's like, that's stupid. Like, everybody deserves to be saved. Everybody is, you know, there's good people in this world. We need to do the right thing for them. And then it's like, so, you know, scratch it off the list. Like, I'm not using that as an excuse. And then it's like, okay, well, we're not from here, and this world doesn't like people who are different from them, and we don't want to put ourselves in danger by being somebody who is different from them. And he's like, I mean, I get that. I'm different in a lot of ways. I see how that's gotten me picked on and that's gotten me bullied, but, like, then don't I have kind of the responsibility to stand up for other people who are being hurt in the same way that I am, or in different ways for this, like, for same inherent reason? So good. So much to say. So much to come from with this book. I cannot wait to see where it goes. And again, that mixture of art styles is such a selling point for me.
Grandmaster.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And then lastly for Picks of the Week is The Sacrificers, issue 5 from Image Comics and Rick Remender. I have always liked Rick Remender's books. This is the first one that I have gushed over, that I love, that I put in everybody's hand, and I'm like, I don't know what your style is, but, like, maybe this is the book for you. Like, you should try it. This is becoming that book for me very, very quickly. And this is the story of a world where each family of people who are not in the upper class of people has to choose a person in their family that will be their sacrifice when they come to a certain age. And in issue 1, we followed that sacrifice in that family. And then we actually get to see where that sacrifice leads. And basically, we find out that they are being sacrificed to the higher-ups who are gods, who want to live forever and essentially need that sacrifice in the way that it is done. And I don't want to spoil too much for you, but in the way that it is done to continue to live and survive. And the main god, the main leader of the gods, is the father of a young girl who, her mother refuses to use the godly, like, stuff to stay alive, and her father is, like, the one who's like, I live off of this, and I will continue to sacrifice all of our people, and I don't care. And she has kind of taken on like her mother's thing where she's like, I have the spoiledness of being my father's child, but I also want to kind of stand for something good. And she has figured out that there's something going on with these sacrifices, and she feels like they must be doing it to betray her parents, because surely her father is not involved. And in this issue, she really finds out a lot about that. But we continue to follow our sacrifice, who has not yet been sacrificed yet, and is also trying to figure it out. This book took some turns. I can't show you anything else from the rest of this issue, but every issue of this book, I always get to the end and I'm like, what just happened? Oh my gosh, like I did not know that that's where we were going with this. And like some of it I'm like, okay, like I kind of assumed like maybe we would go there, but then you took it a little bit further. This issue, I was like, whoa, Rick, what are we doing here? Oh my gosh, like I did not expect that. And I learned some completely new things about what this book may be about. But seriously, if you are not reading Sacrificers, go to a comic book store tomorrow. Not mine. It's not open, but a comic book store that is open. Go on Wednesday when you pick up your new books and just ask for 1 through 5 of Sacrificers. Because I don't know if it's going to be a book that keeps going. So I don't know if there'll be a trade break at 6, or if it's going to be like a smaller series. And I don't know, but I guarantee you, the suspense is actually part of what builds this book up. Getting to that issue and then having that cliffhanger and then having to wait makes this story. I don't know if it would have the same intensity if you waited for trade, honestly. Like, I feel like this is one of those where, like, you need the dun, dun, dun at the end, and then to sit around for a month going, do you think? I don't know. Do you think? Like, what's going to happen? What if it's this? So, you know, get in on it and have that conversation at your local comic shop or online or wherever it is that you talk about comics, because this is a book that needs to be talked about. All right, we got a lot of other books that came out this week, so I'm going to fly through those really fast. Those are all of our small press indie books we're going to dive into, but let's go really quickly. IDW has been reprinting The Last Ronin. These are reissues, not second prints, so if you never got issues 1 through 5, the entire Last Ronin series, you can get that now. Alpha Flight is out this week with issue 5 from Marvel Comics and one of the mini Peach Momoko Nightmare variants that are hitting out the shelves right now. Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer issue 5 from Boom and 20th Television. I almost said 20th Century Fox. It's not. Fire and Ice Welcome to Smallville. This is also issue 4. And again, not to be confused with the Fire and Ice coming out from Dynamite. Invincible Iron Man issue 13, and this nice little New Year celebration with Tony and his new bride Emma. Marvel Voices Avengers. This is going to give us some of those great Marvel Voices stories from diverse creators and about diverse characters for just specifically in the Avengers world. Shazam issue 6 as a part of that Dawn of DC Shazam story. The Sentry, issue 1. Sentry is back, and in this issue, we see a lot of different characters who may be taking over for Sentry. So we had a first appearance of a whole bunch of people. X-Men's Fall of X, a storyline continues in X-Men issue 29, and we've got this Peach Momoko Nightmare variant for poor old Rogue. Titans are experiencing their Beast World event right now, and we have 2 of the tie-ins with Waller Rising #1 and Tour Metropolis #1. So this is, there's quite a few titles that are going to be in this. You can find your checklist, I believe, in the book. I could be wrong. There is, I know the main Titans, I believe the main Titans title has a checklist for you, but there is a lot of titles that are going to connect with this Titan Beast World story, so make sure you check it every week for what is on there. Star Wars Dark Droids D-Squad issue 4. Star Wars itself, which is on issue 41. King Spawn out with issue 28 this week. Or was that last week? I don't know. I think we're behind on our Spawn titles. Superman, the Metal Curtain, Superman 78, the Metal Curtain issue 2. If you are a fan of the Superman 78 movie, we had the Superman 78 comic last year, and now this is the continuation of that. Poison Ivy issue 17. There was a really pretty David Nakayama cover that is entirely gone at my store, but hopefully if you're looking for it, you can find it. Fantastic Four issue 14, also with the Peach Momoko Nightmare variant, as does Daredevil issue 4 with another Nightmare. We're going to have a Nightmare variant on all Marvel titles from Peach Momoko, so if you're a Peach Momoko fan, make sure you're keeping an eye out for all of those over the next month. Here is the Monica cover of her Nightmare on Avengers. This is so cool. I love this one, honestly, with those like eyeballs in her hair. It's so creepy. Blue Beetle issue 4 as part of your Dawn of DC. If you are a Blue Beetle fan, you need to grab this. And if you are looking for a comic in Spanish, this series has a Spanish issue for a full Spanish issue for every single issue. Batman Santa Claus Silent Night issue 1. At least Zatanna is getting on the cover of a book. We could get some more Zatanna in our lives. There is also the rub and sniff variant that smells like peppermint. I know that one's getting a little hard to find, so move quickly. Don't scratch it. It's not scratch and sniff. Please don't scratch the cover of your comic. It's a rub and sniff. Honestly, you don't even really have to rub it to smell it. So if you are looking to grade it, don't do that. Batman issue 140 out this week. And speaking of really cool variant covers, hitting the shelves this week are the Roar variants for Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. These are copies of issue 1, and inside are the covers actually roar, kind of the way your like Hallmark cards have sound effects. These have sound effects where you can either hear Kong or Godzilla roar, depending on who your monster is. And then we've got a couple of trades that are really great to pick up for the Christmas season. We've got the Night Before Christmas as told by Futurama. We've got, we got the Krampus story. If you, this is from Oni Press. If you're looking for just like a really fun Krampus story, this is Father Christmas and the Secret Society of Santa Claus, trying to distribute some great holiday cheer around the world, but Krampus is messing that up. And then Naughty List. This is a story about Santa Claus just trying to bring joy to children, and when somebody steals his list to use it for all of the wrong reasons, Santa Claus gets very angry and starts taking them out. And then for those of you who saw -1 this week and need a little bit more Godzilla in your life, we do have the volume 1 of the IDW Godzilla in the library collection. This is a comprehensive collection of all things Godzilla volume 1, and it's going to take you back to that 1954. So if you need some more 1950s Godzilla in your life, there it is. And then out this week, we've got Michael Mouse from Floating World Comics for all of you who want a little adult version of Disney. This has been one of the books most picked up this week in the store and just laughed at by all of my Disney fans who love dark humor. And then The Matriarchs, which I'm really excited to check out from Dark Horse. This is a story about 2 female researchers who survive a prison riot almost completely unscathed, only to find out that they are members of an immortal race of women with superhuman abilities and a violent history. And there is a race to head off the impending threat to all men on the planet. And the only way to do that is to confront their unforgivable past and terrible thing that men have done to women before all the women killed them. So I'm really excited about this book. Can't wait to check it out. That's my read for tomorrow. If you haven't grabbed a copy, make sure you do. Once again, we have our Old Manatee Candlelight Block Party this Friday, December 15th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Come check out all the businesses. If you've never been down to this area, it's just east of downtown Bradenton. That's a direction that I could be entirely wrong on, but we're on the East Street. So, okay, I'm going off the fact that we're east and not west Manatee, so I figured we were east. But we are east of downtown, east of Manatee Memorial Hospital. There are so many great things. Again, restaurants like Edelweiss, the German restaurant, Vernode, our Hungarian restaurant, and Central Cafe will all have some amazing food specials. Santa is going to be hanging out with Mrs. Claus for pictures at your honeycomb. Segunda Vida is going to have some tamales and some other incredible foods and things available over there, as well as some secret surprises, so come early because those are going to happen before the sun sets. Loving Hands Thrift Shop is going to have some fun stuff going on there. Vintage Vine will have some great snacks and things as well. Oh my gosh, they just told me today and it sounds like it's gonna be great. But there's a concert at Oscura for 18 and up. It's $5 to get in, but you can head over there and check that out later towards the end. So if you're coming in, you're an adult and you want to just go check that out afterwards. And of course, we'll have some craft and goodies and a bunch of our other neighbors hanging out here, talking about awesome, cool things that this neighborhood has. It is Friday, December 15th from 5 to 9. You can pick up one of these and get little stamps for all the places you visit, but there's going to be goodies everywhere, so come check it out. Again, we are drinking tonight Sterling Vintner's collection, California Cab Sav from 2022 that has been really smooth, a great wine for just sipping, and they even say like it's a great sip wine, and I definitely think that's true. Lots of blackberry, lots of cherry, some nice little hints of vanilla that have been really great. Absolutely enjoyed it. Again, thank you to Realize Bradenton for having us out for the city's Winter Wonderland last night. That was so much fun. We have the Candlelight Block Party this Friday. We have kids workshops on Saturday at 11:30 and 3, so come bring the kids out and join us for that. Lots of great, wonderful Christmassy spirit in the store. You're not going to want to miss it. So come shop with us this week. We will see you on Wednesday for New Comic Book Day. Until then, happy reading, everyone. Bye.